We're heading back to God's own country of Wales this week. But as with all the stories I tell, unfortunately this won't be a tourist information film. As beautiful as Wales is, this week we're heading to Pontypridd, not a million miles from where I currently sit, to look at the case, similar to last week's case of Heather Bogle, of a woman who turned down the advances of a man. I get it, rejection hurts, which is why I gave up asking a long time ago. But when one has been rejected, that should be it. But in these stories it never is. In cases of domestic violence, we know that the most perilous time for a woman in a relationship is when she decides to leave. But it seems that for some men, rejection from potential partners can be just as triggering, often with devastating consequences. This is Murder of Crows.
Say that you're ready, but you won't like it. You say that you're ready, but you won't like it. Silence all the crows, lining up in little rows. A sudden chill surrounds me. Silence all the crows, see come out and say you're old. A sudden chill.
The large town of Pontypridd, which derives from the name Pontypridd, Welsh for bridge by the earthen house, referring singly to successive wooden bridges that once spanned the River Taff at this time. Like many Welsh communities, it was tied to the coal and iron industries that flourished in Wales what seems like a lifetime ago. With the withering of those industries, these communities have similarly withered and fallen on hard times. It has its notable place in Welsh history. Our national anthem, Hen Wlad fy Nhadau, or Land of My Fathers, was written in the town, and gravelly voiced singing legend Sir Tom Jones was born in the area. Now it's one of the many towns in Wales, and indeed in the UK in general, that seems tired and has seen better days. But it's to this town we go to look at a horrifying event that shook the town to its core in April of 2015. Tracey Woodford was born on February the 13th, 1968 in Rhyd-y-Felin, small village near Pontypridd, where she still lived with her mother and brother. She did not work and did not really go out very much. She was a petite woman, and in keeping with her quite sheltered life, was quite vulnerable and naive. She seemed settled with a simple life of going to the post office, picking up her weekly shopping. She doted on her niece and nephews, and though she had little money, she would always pick up treats for the kids. On Tuesday, April the 21st, 2015, she said goodbye to her mum and brother and said she was going shopping as she normally did. She visited a cash generator, which is a bit like a pawnbroker's in the UK, to pick up a ring she had put a deposit on. Whether it was this purchase or some other reason, Tracey seemed to be in a celebratory mood, as she rather unusually decided to go for a drink. Nothing strange or unusual about that, but Tracey did not drink often, so her tolerance to alcohol wasn't especially high. She visited the Tumble Inn and followed this with a trip to Alfred's bar. This is where her intoxication began to be noticed, as she fell off her chair on 2 separate occasions and had to be helped up by another customer. Having left Alfred's, she was seemingly in the mood to continue her evening on the lash. Quite why she wasn't heading for home is unknown, but she found her way to the Skinny Dog pub at 7:45 p.m. For obvious reasons, the barmaid refused to serve her an alcoholic drink, but she was served a Diet Coke. So she was clearly intoxicated, but not so much that she was asked to leave. It was here that a predator noticed her vulnerability and intoxication. Part of a group of 3 men that invited Tracey to join them, Christopher May clearly had an agenda when befriending the woman. Christopher May rather ominously had a background as a butcher. He started work at Hadley's butcher shop in Pontypridd as a 14-year-old on a part-time basis, before becoming a full-time employee as an adult. He dealt with the incoming animal carcasses and in total worked at Hadley's for 18 years before leaving in 1991. In 1995, apropos of nothing that seemed to lead to this, he was charged with arson after setting a school alight, with firefighters finding May playing the piano inside the burning building, as you do. Other criminal history in 1982, 2005 and 2010 were relatively minor affairs involving burglary or driving under the influence of alcohol. When he was 31, he moved to Cardiff, where he began a relationship with a woman called Tina. They had 2 children together, but the relationship broke down in 2002, and Tina moved to Kent, where, for unknown reasons, she took her own life in 2010. Now, following this separation, May moved to Aberdare for a time before returning to Pontypridd, where he seemed to live a quiet life. Being unemployed, he was required to sign on at the job centre, and it seems that the Skinny Dog was somewhere on his route, as he adopted the pub as his local and started going there regularly. While he regularly drank to excess, he was rarely difficult or aggressive. But it seems he was definitely a man with 2 sides to him. Barmaid Rebecca Williams said, "I never had to say bad words to him in the pub or stop his drink. He has always been a gentleman. We used to have banter. I would call him Little Legs and I would give him lifts home from work." Tony Haney, a friend of May's, had known him for 10 years. He said, "He was all right. A bit of a joker. Nice bloke. He used to come to my flat. I'd go to his and watch the rugby. He was a pleasant fella." Another friend, Daniel Marshman, said he had known May for around 15 years. He said, "We have always got on very well and he's always been a good laugh." We didn't talk in depth about our lives, but we had a laugh, joke, few beers together, and he was a friend. But there was another darker side to May. Referring to an incident in April of 2015, the skinny dog barmaid Keris Richards said he was ordering his drink and made me come close to his face, which made me uncomfortable. He started talking to me about his love of redheads, how we were perfect and good in bed, which quite offended me. He asked if he could look at my fingers. I hesitantly put my hand out and he grabbed hold of my fingers. He seemed disgusted by the way my fingers looked, and he said I should look after them better, and he was stroking my fingers. It upset me and disturbed me that he was saying these strange things to someone who was young enough to be his daughter. It seems that excess alcohol could turn this normally reserved Dr. Jekyll into a predatory Mr. Hyde. So on the evening of April 21st, 2015, it seemed pretty ordinary for these gents to include Tracey in their evening. The initial interactions between May and Tracey seemed flirty on the innocent side, but May showed his intentions as he was overheard saying to Tracey, "If I buy you a few drinks, maybe you'll come home with me." To which Tracey was heard to respond in her naive way that she was not that kind of girl. And May responded by saying he was just joking, but many a true word is spoken in jest. And at 11:20 p.m, Tracey left the pub in the company of the three men. At this point, the three headed in different directions, with one of May's friends, completely understandably, heading to the kebab shop. As he did so, he saw Tracey heading off with May in the direction of his flat. That was the last time she was seen alive. Michael and Gail Ellie, who lived below May, thought they heard a thud at around 2:20 a.m, but assumed that it was one of the great many occasions that May had fallen over while being drunk. So the next day, on Wednesday the 22nd of April, Tracey's family began to get concerned after no one had heard from her. The day after she'd walked through that front door for the final time, her sister Sharon saw their mother Linda out shopping and asked if Tracey had stayed with her the night before. Sharon said that she had not. She said, we began to worry, because if she didn't stay at Mum's or mine, then we didn't know where she was. The same day, Christopher May turned up at the Grill Steakhouse, where he was a dishwasher, with scratches on his face. He explained them away as a result of bumping himself while doing some DIY for his parents. The next day, the police were called, and it wasn't long before the net began to close around me, as CCTV from the town made it clear who Tracey had left the pub with. When police officers called at May's flat, he was initially hesitant to talk to them, but eventually capitulated. And the officers, Sergeant Stuart Williams and Constable Craig Gardner, were about to make some awful discoveries. May started by telling a tale of leaving the pub with Tracey, but was told to piss off after he tried to cop a feel, or have a bit of a gropey, squeezy fondle if you prefer. A plausible tale of a man taking a chance after a night of drinking only to miss out. When the officers asked to look around the flat, a seemingly deflated May reluctantly agreed. When the officers looked in the bathroom, they were shocked when they moved the shower curtain and saw 2 legs and 2 arms. Sergeant Williams said, I closed the curtains and double-checked to confirm what I saw. I could not believe my eyes. I described it as if someone cut up a mannequin and placed it in the shower tray. As we all know, it's never a mannequin. I told Mr. May he was under arrest on suspicion of murder, and he said, I know. When asked where the rest of the body was, May absently said, some of her is in the cupboard, and some is at Pontypridd Rugby Club. Because where else would it be? I mean, the rugby club, obviously. Phew. Further searches of the flat found an upper torso in an Adidas rucksack, 4 fingers and a thumb in a handbag, and bloody clothes in a bag that was further wrapped in a duvet. Tools including a handsaw, kitchen knife, Stanley knife, pair of scissors and secateurs were recovered and analysed. With word quickly spreading about an unspeakable crime in the town, the media and a more intensive police presence came to the shocked town. May's admission about the location of other body parts at the rugby club resulted in the rugby club being locked down and police were posted around the ground. On April 25th, 2 specially trained police officers looked in the storm drains at Pontypridd Rugby Club. They first encountered pitch darkness and running water, but once they had walked about 140 meters, the pipe opened into an underground chamber. With water splashing and dripping, one of the officers turned his head to avoid the water and was met with the sight of a human head lying on its side. The face was bruised and slashed. Near the head was a bag containing a lower torso. When all body parts were recovered, a post-mortem determined the cause of death was cardiac arrest caused by pressure to the neck. Semen was recovered from Tracey's body that matched May's DNA, but it's not known whether sexual intercourse was pre or post-mortem. After his initial arrest, May stopped answering questions and was, for rather obvious reasons, charged with Tracey's murder, but he pled not guilty on the grounds of self-defense and loss of self-control, because nothing says not guilty like turning a person into a mosaic. In November of 2015, May stood trial at Cardiff Crown Court, where he told of a scenario where he and Tracey had consensual sex, but later he had found Tracey going through his wallet and there was a violent altercation. He said, "She came at me flailing with her arms. I tried to defend myself by stopping her. I got hold of her hands and pushed them away with my hands. She called me a fucking prick. I lost control. I don't remember then. Next thing I know, she was on the floor, dead." He then describes being in a state of shock and remembered seeing something on TV about a body being easier to hide if it was in pieces. Something that was second nature to the former butcher. He chose the storm drain at the rugby club simply because he thought putting things there would allow them to wash into the sea more easily. After 2 weeks of arguments and evidence, the jury deliberated on 21st of November for less than an hour before returning with a verdict. Short deliberations are usually found in open and shut cases, which this clearly was. The jury rejected any use of self-defense, and an attempted theft by Tracey was similarly not taken seriously. Rather, it was accepted that the murder was sexually motivated. In her sentencing remarks, Mrs. Justice Nicola Davis said his actions were those of a determined and ruthless sexual predator. Judge Davis said, "Your murder of Tracey Woodford was cruel, callous, and determined. These same characteristics prompted you in the hours and days after her murder to dismember her body and deliberately conceal it. You did this for one purpose: to avoid detection and arrest for the murder you knew you had committed. You embarked on this without a thought for your victim, and still less for that of her family, whose grief for their daughter and sister was made more anguished by the grim dismemberment of her body."
Friday the 24th of April this year, I was on duty at Cocket Police Station actually, when I received a call from the BCU in Pontypridd that tragically a missing person had been found, but tragically she'd been found dismembered within an address in Pontypridd, and that then triggered a major crime investigation. Christopher May was a 50-year-old male, was arrested at the scene at his address where parts of Tracey were recovered. He's a trained butcher. He had the skills to dismember Tracey. There was some indication from Mr. May that parts of Tracey were within his property and also within an expansive area of the Pontypridd Rugby Club. The challenge for our search teams were what we're going to have to deal with on the recovery of body parts. This is an investigation that South Wales Police have never had to deal with, certainly in my 20 years of policing. May himself has shown no remorse. Even at the time of the discovery of Tracey, he tried to trick the officers into believing that she wasn't in the flat in the first instance. I have no doubt that if they wouldn't have done what they did, certainly within the bathroom of the flat, that we would not have recovered Tracey's body. We cannot have conducted this investigation without the help and support of two communities. The community of Rwd Felyn, where Tracey is from, and where the family currently live, and the community of Pontypridd, because they've had to live through all of this, certainly over the course of the last 7 months. But I want to really thank the family. They've showed immense strength to get through this investigation to this point.
May was ordered to serve a minimum of 28 years. And in the unlikely event he is ever released, he will remain on licence for the rest of his life. Understandably, Tracey Woodford's family have been grief-stricken by Tracey's death and haunted by the manner of it. Tracey's mother Linda spoke about the horrendous moment she viewed her daughter's body, which had been assembled back together on a mortuary table. She said, "I started to get distressed when they started to tell me what had happened to Tracey's body. It was like I was living in a nightmare. I didn't want to believe what they were saying. I thought, what person would do something like this? What did he do to her? I stood over her crying. I didn't know what to do or say. I kissed her on the forehead and then I had to leave the room." She added, "This man has torn my family apart. It's destroyed us. It has totally destroyed us all." Tracey led a simple life which revolved around her family. She was happy doing her crosswords and wouldn't have hurt a fly. I miss her so much. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I think of is Tracey. Every day I just get by. I am surviving. And there ends the story of a hideous and callous murder and aftermath, fueled by a woman rejecting a man's advances. The ripple effects of May's anger has broken the lives of Tracey's family and friends in the years since this catastrophe. I can only hope they have found ways to manage and to cope and to move forward. This video is of course dedicated to Tracey Woodford, a shy, vulnerable and reserved lady who was enjoying a very rare evening out when she crossed paths with a drunk man who wasn't going to take no for an answer. I hope her family have found some degree of peace. Thank you for watching Murder of Crows, as ever. I'm Steve. This ginger lump is Samson. And we'll see you when we see you.
say